Hello, everyone. Welcome to another CSM20 interview. Today, I have another candidate who is throwing his name in the hat and has not run for CSM before, so we will hear from them, their platform, and a few questions that have to do more with my campaign to see where they sit and if they're going to get on the ballot. Just a reminder that that is the reason that I'm doing these interviews, partly so you can make a decision on who to vote for, and partly so that my communities, Everkeys and Worm Life, can make a decision on who to put on our ballots. I will not be making these ballots up, it will be my community team, so that is important. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your EVE experience and what you do in the game?
So I'm Teddy Shee. I've been playing Eve since 2018. I mostly do industry work, mining and PvE. Outside of the game, I work in do like marketing and transportation and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I do a lot of building and a lot of construction, and I go out and sell that stuff.
Awesome. So, if you're throwing your name in the hat, you obviously want to get some things done if you make it to the CSM. Go ahead and tell us three of your main points for your platform.
My three main points are being a champion for the backbone of Eve, being a truly independent voice, and improving the new player experience. So to break those down a bit, like my main focus is working on making industrial and mining and PvE players like become a bit better, build them back up because they're kind of the baseline for, the big wars that we see. I'm an independent voice. I don't have a block or anything behind me. I'm kind of just running this on my own. And I want to also help and improve new player experience things. I know it hasn't been great over these last few years. We've gotten better, but there's always room for improvement to keep these new players sticking around.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the heart and soul of everything that I do, so I am behind you on that one. Speaking of those new players, what do you think one of the biggest barriers is to getting new players to Undock?
I think it's a combination of two things. It's the fear of loss and then the lack of a clear purpose. New players, kind of terrified because they're, of losing their first ships, because like especially once you step out into those like more dangerous areas of space, you're kind of just thrown to the wolves. So trying to get them to get out there and be a little bit more comfortable, undocking and be comfortable, that loss is going to happen is kind of important. So that's probably the most important section of that.
Do you have any ideas of what you would take to CCP to help, get them to Undock?
I think it's you just improve, them building, give new players a better tool to find corporations that will get them out. Because when you get them to a group of people, that helps get them out and get them more comfortable because then they aren't alone when they go out and do those things. I think that's the biggest thing is just find a way to convince them, not going to convince them, but give them tools to better distinguish like the actual good, new player friendly groups that they can join to be able to go and do those things and have a community that they can go be a part of.
So, based on your answer, I'm going to guess that you think that fleets play really big into player retention.
Yes, fleets are an incredible tool to, because again, it's that community. So by having them be able to, interact with other players that, are sort of on their side, that is such an important tool to allow people to be undocked, feel safer undocking, and then go out and do, those riskier activities because they aren't alone doing them. They have like a small, circle to work with.
Okay, so then what kind of things do you think CCP could introduce into the game that would help communities provide content for their players?
Better organizational tools. I mean, the better calendar, better recruitment tool, an improved fleet finder. Those things would be extraordinarily handy because, like, they are a bit outdated. They aren't the most useful. We have a lot better third-party tools, I feel, for those things. And if we could integrate those third-party tools, or at least some of the ideas from them into the game itself, it would definitely help, make it easier for people to find and use those tools. And that's probably the best thing I can suggest.
So I want to think it was back in 2020. CCP actually redid the Fleet Finder. What is your problem with it now?
It's still, I think the best thing it would help it the best would be to add like some sort of um just add the tags, be able to say like this is a mining fleet. So instead of having to rely on the title of the fleet, you could actually like have a tag system, and then people would be a bit more encouraged, especially for like public fleets, because we have outside tools that we use for like combat fleets and whatnot to
Hmm.
be able to go find public ones of those. But having it into the game would be super better in my opinion.
Okay. And then what do you think keeps players from undocking? Oh, sorry.
Uh,
Do you think I'm reading back here? Do you think toxicity is keeping players from undocking?
Definitely. But we have to also distinguish, the inherent harshness of playing Eve versus like actual
Hmm.
technology. Like scamming and smack talk are part of the game, like that obviously, but targeted harassment, especially against new players, is not. So, we gotta make safe, you gotta make space safe, but ensure, competitive gameplay and not player harming gameplay.
Okay.
So,
And what kind of content do you think keeps players logging in time after time? And I'm not talking just new players, I'm talking everyone that plays the game.
having a goal, whether it's building a big old ship or, completing a mission and getting whatever thing you're after in the LP store, or for defending space, like that's kind of the biggest thing is that having a goal that you have in mind, whether it's you or the corporation or group you're a part of, and being in like that's what encourages most people to log in is being like, yes, I can go and accomplish this, or I can work towards accomplishing this.
Do you think that the daily login opportunities encourage people to log in, or is that just kind of like some fluff on top of, the gameplay?
I think the new system for daily login, where you actually have to go out and do something, I think is nicer because it encourages people to actually go out and undock their ships. And they've gotten better over, versus when they originally put them in. But compared to the old system where you could just log in and collect stuff, I personally like it because at least it gets people in space doing something, so it kind of encourages people to go out and do something, even if they won't do all six of them, I think is what it is now. Um, it at least gets them out doing one or two of those. So they're at least going out in space and exploring or mining or killing things and being productive other than just logging in and clicking, accept.
Do you think that multi-boxers and solar players should be encouraged to do more group activity?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, multi-boxers, like they are kind of their own group. Typically, like, once you're to that level, you're a bit more comfortable going out and doing, completely risky activities, even when you're running seven like Lokis or whatever. That whatever large combat group or large mining group you may be running. So, like they already kind of are their own fleet. They're like a bring your own fleet sort of thing. So I don't think they need too much help getting into actual like true fleet activities because they kind of got themselves.
Do you think that CCP should add more solo content into the game?
I think so. I think we have but at the same time, I think we have a decent amount of things you can do solo. Like it's more of a risk versus reward. Like we have exploration you can do confidently pretty solo. We have mining, in dangerous space that you can do fairly confidently solo. We have gas huffing in nullsec or wormholes that I mostly do solo, and a lot of people do solo because it's extraordinarily dangerous, and having fleets go out would just make it even more dangerous. So I think there's activities out there already, and I mean, if we want to add more, sure, but I think that like our baseline of activities is pretty good.
Okay. Uh, if you could ask CCP for one quality of life change that would be useful to you or your community, what would it be?
I would say a dynamic opportunity board, so that integrates
Hmm.
directly into the UI. So once you're done with your tutorial, done with like your agent missions, it would kind of give you, for a new player, somebody like less than 90 days, it would give them sort of here's like the things in space that are near you. Like it could be, there's a, there's a mining fleet, forming up there, or there's, a site you can go scan down over here, or just give an idea of a couple of options that are, maybe not as, like we have certain things that are already integrated into the agency window, but having a couple more things specifically that would get encourage new players to undock that might have a little bit more information than we typically give to like a more veteran player, just to say, hey, like these are things that you can go do, so you can kind of go get a taste of what it's like to go and hunt down a data site and then go scan it down, then go and discover the things in a data site.
Doesn't the what is it, the activity window with the freelance projects, doesn't that already kind of do that?
It does it to a degree, but something more geared towards like those like a little bit harder to sort of understand topics like in our new window we have like event sites and stuff like that, but like it doesn't show like specifically for a new player, like I said, somebody who would be old, newer than 90 days. I would have it like specifically show like, hey, in this system there is one data site that is can be scanned down, because typically for us like we wouldn't be able to have that information. But for somebody new, being able to be like, hey, you can go here and do this thing. So it encourages them to go out and at least attempt to do that certain thing. So I think that would be extraordinarily handy for a new player.
Okay, I actually really like that idea. Now, one of my big things is community. I have a community of over 4,500 players at this point. We do over 100 fleets a month of everything. You name it, we do a fleet of it. And it's an open community. What is your definition of community in Eve?
I think the best definition for community is a group of players with a shared purpose and identity. So it's more than just a name and a corp chat. It's the people that you trust to fly with, the people you strategize with, and it's kind of the people who make the universe feel like a second home.
So you indicated earlier when we were talking about yourself and your platform that you're independent and you don't have any block behind you. Are you involved in any communities in Eve?
Not really. I fly with a couple different groups on occasion. I mostly go out and help with public mining fleets and that. But beyond that, like for the most part, for me in my industry, I run by myself. But I have connections. I have people that I talk to that I deal with and make trade deals with on a sort of regular basis. So like that would be my community. Even though I don't have a banner I fly under, my community is the people that I interact with.
Okay. And speaking of community, this summer the Greater Eve community band together for an operation out in Providence. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's the absolute order thing, I'd assume.
Correct. What did you think about that particular operation? Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? Are you totally indifferent about it?
I think, like, as a community, we banded together to get rid of this like toxic group. So I think it's a good thing that we were able as a community to come together and do that. But at the same time, when it is something that is that atrocious, like the Eve Online, game devs or the GMs, I should say, should come and also help with something like that because it was incredibly toxic. But at least us as a community banded together and went out there and wrecked their life. So, you know what? I'm okay with that.
Excellent. Now we're going to get into the part of the interview that I really like. This is CSM specific questions. A lot of this is we're going to pretend that you made it CSM20 and what are you going to do? So, if you make it onto the CSM, what other candidates or candidate types do you want to work with the most?
Well, since I'm independent, I'm open to work with anyone who'll share common ground on a problem. So if I expect to build coalitions with other independents, with small gang specialists, with block members, with basically anybody else that comes on the board that has an idea that we align with. Like if we align on something, we will come together and make it happen. Um, yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing is that being independent gives me that flexibility to not have anyone specific I want to work with or not want to work with, because as long as we share ideas, we'll get them done.
Looking back at the CSM for like the past 5 years, what type of candidates do you think the CSM have lacked the most?
I think the CSM has lacked the most. So we've had a lot of block candidates. We've had a couple of high sec candidates. We've had a couple of wormhole people. Um, Honestly, we've had a decent diversity. I wish we didn't have as many block candidates, but I understand that, obviously we have three really large blocks that can basically
Mm-hmm.
elect in whoever they like. So I think that is more of we have people that are covering all the areas, especially since CCP now picks 2 additional people to go on the CSM to kind of cover areas that aren't common. But on that same token, if we could reduce the amount of people in nullsec being on the CSM, I think that would be the biggest benefit because nullsec has a pretty strong voice as it is. But I feel like other areas of space, they have a voice, but their voice is a lot smaller.
And when you're thinking about becoming a CSM, if you make it, have you figured out how you're going to show player support for the issues that you take to CCP?
It's all about data. For CCP, it's all about data and well-reasoned arguments. So it's going to be collecting ideas and feedback from forums, Discord, and town halls that I put on, and then any data that I can collect on those as well, and then take those to CCP and lay everything out. And then back to the community, it would be transparency, talking and giving them updates as to the ideas that they gave me, then feeding those to CCP and then returning, what CCP, says I can return within like the limits of the contract that we all signed. So that's my goal is just constant communication in both directions between the game devs to the players.
Okay. And how do you think that you're going to handle players that come to you with issues that you completely disagree with?
It's pretty simple. It'd be to listen, understand, and explain. So we would just, we would let them, they would discuss, they would tell me what their idea is, whether I agree with it or not. I would then explain to them why I agree or disagree, and if, um, listen, understand it, and then explain it. So get all that information in from them, try to understand it, ask any questions that are pertinent, and then feedback why I disagree or I agree, and see if we can come to a common ground on it. So that would be the biggest thing is just communicate. Like even if we end up realizing that we can't come to any agreement on anything, it's okay. But at least we tried and we communicate.
And on the flip side, how do you think you're going to handle it if CCP comes with something that is really shouldn't be done and it makes you really incredibly angry? How do you think you're going to handle that on that side?
Again, communicate. I mean, ultimately, CCP are the ones that make the decisions, but communicate what I can to them in my opinions, and then also grab up data and other points that I can and take them to CCP and like be like, look, the player base thinks this is insane. Like, share as much as I can, get as much feedback as I can from the people, and take it to CCP along with any data or anything else, and explain to them that these changes are not going to be what needs to happen. The community disagrees or the data points towards it not working very well, but ultimately, if CCP's made up their mind, you can't, you can try to change as best you can, but there's only so much you can do.
Right.
They are the ultimate, deciders. So,
Absolutely. So now here is a very interesting question. What do you think you're going to do if the players elect you to get on the CSM and you go to your very first meeting where they're going to outlay everything that's going to happen during your term? This is like all the expansions, what they're planning on working on, what they're moving towards. And you find out that they're only going to do PvP. They're not going to touch mining, they're not going to touch industry, or even, the new player experience. How do you think you're going to handle yourself?
I think it's realistic. It's possible that they will focus on something beyond just industry, but it would be my first step would be to pivot and to see where my experience and expertise applies to what they are working on. I mean, even though I don't have much experience with PvE, well, PvP, I should say, PvP does touch on industry to a degree. Between salvage and making sure that we can rebuild what they plan on destroying. So I would just pivot, collect data, talk to the groups, and then just kind of shift my focus and still focus on try my best to still support what they're working on. And then when CCP is ready to shift back towards industry or towards what I'm more skilled for, be well prepared with ideas and data to be like, hey, this is what needs improvement, so we can start building on the next steps.
So then, again, you're sitting there, you find out everything that's going to go on, and you find out that they're going to radically change your gameplay. So, I don't know, you're going out, you're gas huffing, and they decide that they're going to reduce the reward by almost 75%. You can't really go out and tell the community about this. You kind of have to sit on it. How do you think you're going to feel about that?
Well, even I would probably be devastated. It would absolutely kill prices. But anyways, um, it would be to be representative. So, you know, I would advocate, even if I can't share with my community, I would advocate on behalf of my community, being like, hey, like this change is going to affect a lot of things because gas is so important. And then just to fight for the best outcome or compromise. I also realize that, I have a duty to the game's health, and I have to listen to CCP's reasoning and their function as a bridge. So, once they decide that, and then once they decide to allow us to share it, then I would have to break the terrible news to my community. But like I said, the first thing I'd do, especially when I was be locked down, is to just advocate as best as I can to either not make the changes happen um, or to at least come to some kind of compromise.
And finally, the last question out of this particular block is one of the things that has been a very decisive issue on the past CSMs, and this probably started well before even CSM17, is projection. It was highly discussed in CSM18. It's still being discussed.
A few moments later.
But CCP actually put out some fixes this year that helps make it a little bit better, but in a lot of people's opinions, it's still not great. What do you think you're going to do to make sure that CCP continues working on the projection problem?
I would try to reframe it as beyond just being a PvP or sovereignty issue. I would say that, it's a issue that affects all of us economically and industry, and then also PvP and sovereignty base, because when a massive power block can just project anything they want anywhere, or at least a pretty big space, it gives a lot of safety to those groups, and it makes them feel like they can kind of be very safe. So being able to kind of dial that in and make it so that like smaller groups can kind of take over a small area and like have their own market, not just have massive fleets dropped on them within minutes, would be really nice. So that's what I would suggest to CCP, is just explain to them that it affects all of us, and all of us that would be flying in nullsec space, and that um it doesn't allow for any sort of that small group activity to sort of take hold in nullsec under the guise of these big powers, because these big powers can just kind of take all their big fleets and just ship them wherever they want to ship them to in their space, basically. Um, that's what I would try to change, is make it so that projection's not so bad, so we can hopefully have some more small gang activity, especially right on the borders of these large groups, to give smaller groups a chance to actually sort of sprout up and become a pain to the big blue orb that is nullsec these days.
Awesome. So we have a few more minutes left in the interview. Is there anything that you really wanted to talk about your campaign, or about your knowledge, or things that you would like to see changed that we didn't get to in the rest of the questions?
Honestly, the biggest thing is I want to see improvement to the health and of industry and the game overall. You know, my ideas, I still have most of them strapped up and covered, but the biggest thing is just allow for growth and more fun per hour is the biggest thing. Like, industry is not the most fun thing to be doing in space, but trying to encourage more pilots to do it and increase the fun per hour, I think, is the most important thing I can work on while I'm on the CSM, because that is ultimately one of the biggest factors that gets people in the game. Is if they're having fun and they have a goal in mind, they'll get stuff done. So if I can make things more enjoyable for the average player, especially the ones working in industry, I think I've done a pretty good job.
So it looks like that we have a couple other industry people coming and putting their name in the hat this year. Of course, we have Kenneth Feld that is coming back and trying for it again. We have Angry Mustache, who's already served, I think, 2 terms, that is wanting to come back. And then we, of course, have Oz, who he may not actually go out and do industry, but of course he is very in touch with the market and how CCPs, decisions change, things that are going on, especially when they start messing with the ore. How do you see yourself working with any of these three if they happen to get on at the same time as you are?
I think for the most part, the one that want to work with the most is going to be the Oz. The Oz kind of has a top-down look on like industry in the market. I look from the bottom up because I'm the builder. But beyond that, like all three of us, the other me and the other two, we're a lot more focused on the actual bottom up. So it would be less work. We work with each other to get things done if we all were elected. But I think it's going to be more of a, who's the better candidate. And to be fair, I think we all have a pretty good base. I think we all have great ideas. I think we can, I know one of us will be the winner out of the group, but I think I think all of us have ideas that work well. And it's more of what does the community base, ultimately want to choose. And right now, with as little information as out on all of us, I think the best thing to suggest is wait, see, decide as things get rolling. We still have several weeks until the election, so have us all come on and have listen to what all of us say before making the ultimate decision. That's the best thing I can suggest for the community.
Excellent. Then, let's go ahead and do the final thoughts. Why should players in general vote for you, and why should my communities put you on our ballot?
I want to lead with saying thank you for your time. But I think the reason that players and you should vote for me or I should be put on the ballot is because I kind of represent a pretty crucial and underserved part of the community. The builders, the miners, the mission runners, the economic backbone of the universe, and I'm independent, which is nice for your groups because you're relatively independent. Um, and I plan to be the most accessible and transparent candidate that's on the ballot this year, focusing on fixing new player experience and ensuring the cost of ships and modules allows for more content, not less. I want to be the enthusiastic and prepared independent voice on the CSM. So that's my biggest goal. So absolutely, if you think that I can achieve those goals, vote for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And where can people find you if they have questions about this interview or about your ideas and what you want to bring to CCP?
I'm on the forums. I'm on Reddit at my Reddit handle's Gamble17, and I'm on Discord at Gameable.17. So if you see me in space, or if you see me on Discord, which I'm in the Eve Discord, that's probably the easiest way to reach me. Is either look for Teddy Shee or look for that handle, and then just shoot me a message, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
And do you answer Eve mail?
I do as well. When I'm online, I check it every single time I play. So definitely shoot me an email.
Excellent. Then thank you so much for coming, and best of luck.
Thanks. You as well.